So with the introduction of mirrorless cameras and cheaper capture cards, more and more people are getting nicer cameras for their face cam setup. Like, it's not uncommon to see the Sony a5000 series or a6000 series. The bodies are pretty cheap now. They have really good low light performance, really good autofocus. The lenses can be a bit expensive, but for those of you who are probably chasing the production quality dragon, you know that 4K content is going to be an expectation, and 60 FPS content because everyone wants the silky smooth motion to go with their gameplay. Now, Canon just released the R5 and R6, which are their new flagship cameras, and they can do 4K 60, but they're probably out of the price range for most streamers, and that's not even counting the RF glass that you need to buy for it. But there's one camera that's been out for a while now, but has everything you need to future-proof yourself for a camera. It has 4K, 4K 60, it's really cheap, you can use a huge variety of glass with it. And the camera I'm going to talk about in this video is the camera that I'm actually talking to you on right now, and it's the Panasonic GH5S, which I personally think is now probably the best camera you can get if you're going to be streaming. So this is the point in the video where I say that all the links in the description are affiliate links. If you purchase from those links, it does help support the channel. But having said that, you know, with rumors of a GH6 coming out soon, the GH5 is a pretty old camera. You can find a lot on eBay that are super cheap, usually well taken care of. But I will say that you should buy the GH5S model. It has better low light performance, and it also comes with Vlog installed already on it. The GH5, you have to like hunt a code and you may or may not get it. So this will be important later when it comes to kind of setting up and color grading the camera for your stream setup. So I know a lot of people would say that the Micro Four Thirds format or system is probably on its last legs, and that might be true. There's not as many cameras being made, but the good thing is that the glass is pretty cheap, especially if you get it secondhand. And the other big drawback with the system was the autofocusing system, especially on the GH5 series. But I will say with the latest firmware updates, I mean, you're not getting dual pixel autofocus performance or Sony autofocus performance, but it is quite a bit better. And to be honest, when you're streaming, you're kind of just sat in one position, so it's not really gonna hunt too much, especially if you don't have too many things going on in your background. But probably the best feature is that the GH5 has a full-size clean HDMI output. Pretty much any other mirrorless camera has those damn little micro HDMI outputs, which you think are gonna break every time you put the cable in. But this has a full-size output. It's clean. You put it right into the capture card. And if you don't have a capture card, don't worry. Panasonic actually built webcam software, so you can hook it up via USB and run it as basically a webcam. The only problem with it is that because of USB bandwidth limitations, you know, you don't get the full resolution or the frame rate out of the camera. So if you are going to use this camera with the capture card, in order to get the full experience, you are going to need to pair it with a capture card that can handle 4K 60. So this is usually a PCIe capture card. So like the Elgato 4K 60 Pro, the Magewell 4K Capture Plus, or, you know, you're going to have to use it with the USB 3 card, but these are usually limited to 4K 30 FPS. Unless you get one of those rare exotic cards, like AverMedia actually has a Thunderbolt card that can actually capture, you know, 4K 60. Now, perhaps the biggest drawback or challenge to using Micro Four Thirds is going to be the crop factor. So basically, when you get a lens, there's a 2x crop factor, right? So if you get a lens that says 12 to 35, it's actually 24 to 70. So right now I'm actually using a 16mm 1.4 lens, but because of the crop factor, it's actually 32mm or about 35mm equivalent. So you have to take that into account, especially if you don't have a lot of space. You have to get like a super wide angle lens to be able to get the camera, you know, close enough to you or not too far away. So just something to take into account, the crop factor. So anytime you read a Micro Four Thirds lens, just times it by 2 by whatever number you see on the box. So that sensor size is also going to affect the depth of field or that bokeh performance that you're looking for. So you'll probably have to get like a really fast lens, especially if you're in a dark space. So personally, I think like one of the best budget setups, right? This is like less than $2,000. Let's get the GH5S and get the lens that I'm using right now, which is the Sigma 16mm 1.4. You know, you get a lot of good depth of field. It's fairly wide, not super wide, but at least you don't have to have the camera like 10 feet away from you. So the last thing I want to mention is that the GH5S comes preloaded with Vlog. So Vlog is kind of like that flat profile you see, you know, you see everything washed out. And what this lets you do is it lets you do a lot of really cool like color grading and create that kind of cinematic looking effect or whatever people call it. So you basically, you know, you shoot in Vlog, you record it with your streaming software, you put it in your editing software, you apply like the conversion LUT that Panasonic gives, and then you just tweak it from there. Or there's just tons of LUTs that people sell to have different looks. And I think this really can make you look unique because, if everyone's using the Logitech webcam, they kind of all look the same, but with the ability to grade your stuff, especially using a log profile, your camera can look different and have your own, aesthetic compared to everyone else. So one last thing to consider is not only is the GH5S a great camera for streaming, especially if you're looking to upgrade, but also if you're looking to kind of expand your content game, like maybe you're doing vlogs or you're just doing standalone YouTube videos, kind of like this. Like this is a great camera to just learn how cameras work with, because there's so many tools to get your exposure right, learning what exposure is, learning what log is, learning what color grading is. Like you can learn your whole kind of video making tool set or toolkit in this camera and transfer it to other more expensive cameras when you get to that point. Anyway, I kind of want to ask you now, is there any cameras that you would recommend or you think are really good cameras to use, mirrorless cameras or even DSLR cameras? Who do you think has the best face cam on Twitch? And do you think people actually need to upgrade their cameras? Do you think just sticking with a webcam is fine? Is it all about the content? It doesn't matter, if you can see their face well or not. Let me know in the comments. Give a like if this video was useful, and subscribe if you're going to be chasing that quality dragon forever. And up next is 8K 120 FPS cameras. Thanks again for watching. Catch you on the next one.